Well, hi everyone, and hey, great news. So today I'm going to get to chat with Luca de Risi. Now, Luca and I have never actually met in the real world, and hopefully we'll get to rectify that soon. But suffice to say that I might be familiar with his family, and they might be familiar with me. But hey, that's for history buffs. So, really looking forward to diving in. And originally, when we set this up, we were going to be talking about focusing around the Bizzdesign mega merger. But of course, our timing couldn't be better because actually, we can now actually talk to Luca about the addition of the mysterious third party, because now we know that the world's worst kept secret is public and it's Alphabet. But before we dig into that, um, we set up to be doing this interview. The idea was going to be, early December, but we whole reasons we didn't get it done. But my gosh, so much has changed even in that time. So originally everyone was talking about the mega business line merger. Now we've seen that Orbis have acquired Capsify. Evolution just before Christmas have announced new investment, although I have to say that curious, nice press release announced new investors, but didn't actually tell us how much money they've been put in. So jury's out from my opinion that says, well, how much difference that's going to make. Ardot, of course, partnered with Salonis. We think they're having a little dance before they consider whether they're going to get engaged and married. Suspect that, to be honest, it's really a case of negotiating on price. My personal perspective is Salonis needs Ardot in order to maintain that positioning in the enterprise process mining space. They need something that's going to manage the portfolio of processes. So, guys, whatever it takes, you're going to wind up spending the money. So we had the new Magic Quadrant. Everyone talked about how can it be with all those vendors all sitting there in the top right hand corner. And of course, as I'm sure the analysts knew when they were doing it, there wasn't going to be quite as many as they thought. So now we're down to seven with question marks over whether we'll see in 2025 even further consolidation. And I know that some of you will have seen that, yours truly has suggested that actually, given what's been going on, that actually a merger, however financed, between Evolution and Qualiware would be a really good move. But that's just one. So, moving into the purpose of today, firstly, I want to congratulate Luca, who's now taking on the role of COO of the combined Biz Design Mega Alphabet entity. So, congratulations, Luca. Really happy for you. But I guess we've got to ask the question, what does the role of COO in what I call Biz Design 2.0 actually entail, and what will you be responsible for?
Hey, Mark, and well, first, thank you. Much appreciated. And what will I do? Well, a lot right now, I can tell you with the merger. But moving forward, I hope maybe a little less. But essentially, COO means I'll take care of the business part of the organization. So that is sales, services, CSM, and marketing. And I'm really happy because with the new group, we have a really strong team. And I'm happy to work with a team of super experienced people. And that today, I think, is key to grow in the SaaS software business.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to doing that. And I have to say that looking from the outside, no pressure on you, but you've got some big shoes to fill in my simple mind, because I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Mark Hollenstein when he was at Signavio, and that was exactly his function there as COO, was the whole of the go-to-market organization, and he did a pretty good job there of taking them up to an amazing valuation. So if you can do even half what he had managed to achieve in the Signavio space, then that's going to be great news for Biz Design. Now,
Well, I really hope we do at least the same because I really believe in this merger. We went there proactively and heads on. And well, I'm sure we'll speak about it, but the new value proposition I think is amazing and customers will love it.
yeah, and I think you're right. I want to come back to that value proposition, because you know that it's kind of hard for me doing these interviews, because like the one with yourself and the one with Nick, because I'm trying to be objective as one, but at the same time I'm truly excited. I mean, and from, although we not spent time together because of our association, family wise, and and the time, you know, this is a market I am passionate about and have believed in for so long. So I just find it so exciting that there's things that are actually going on and people recognizing the value. And I don't mean from a customer, I mean from an investor point of view. People say, you know, it's worth investing in these people. It's worth investing in these ideas and these dreams. Never mind just the product, but just believing in people, given that we've all been pushing this and hoping for this for so long. So yeah, I've got to be really careful because I'm just so excited. Now, obviously, as I say, now we know that the third party is Alphabet. Um, Everyone, myself included, will be looking at, okay, well, how does that fit into the picture? Because I can see it from the biz design perspective and very additive. But of course, you know, Mega has actually competed pretty successfully, I might add, with the Alphabet. It may not be as specialized as Alphabet, may not be as specialized as LeanIX in that use case, but nonetheless has been pretty successful in competing. So, question to me would be, well, I can see the rationale, obviously, in the business design mega piece, but why buy Alphabet?
It's a good question, and I'm happy to answer this one step by step. And I would like to start actually with the big picture. It's not Alphabet or Biz Design. It's really the accumulation of the three, Mega, Alphabet, and Biz Design. And the first objective is to be the number one, most focused, most relevant player in the field. We want to be able to first grow aggressively to over the 100 million mark, which would have been a long road to do each by ourselves individually, high growth. And second, we want to be the most focused, dedicated, relevant for our customers. When you go to your Fortune 500, the largest banks, the largest insurance companies, and they see players like ServiceNow, SAP, and others who talk directly to the CIO, it is kind of the safe bet to go for
Yeah,
ServiceNow, even though they do very little for EA, right? So now we are the biggest, solid, most dedicated player. And most importantly, our roadmap is not going to change to adapt to whichever other software suite. We are the most dedicated, the most focused, with high investment in enterprise architecture and more globally business transformation, because you add the GRC piece and the strong process focus. So that's the bigger picture, the general approach. It makes a lot of sense. The bigger we are right now, this is the right size. These three leaders coming together, this is a big part of value proposition in today's market. Plus, when you're together, now we converge the brands later in 2025. So instead of having a third of the budget for one brand, now you have almost tripled the marketing budget for one single brand. So my goal is that we jump up in all the rankings, in all the SEOs on Google Ads. And so I think this is a very bold move on the market. And then to more specifically answer your question on Alphabet and Mega, yes, I think it does make sense. There is overlap, and of course, a little more overlap than between Mega Biz Design or Alphabet Biz Design, right? But still, Alphabet is super strong in SPM. They play on the specific strategic portfolio management market. Mega plays in the business process world. We have the largest banks using solely our business process solution. So there are a lot of complementarities. And when you look at it, we very seldom compete with Alphabet. And that drove the decision. We very seldom compete. Alphabet is one of the top leaders in Germany, top leaders in the government space with the FedRAMP compliance and all these things. And in the end, we don't compete that much. It's a big market out there, and we have complementary value propositions, complementary personas with some level of overlap, which is good because now we can solidify these. And when you speak to some analysts, they actually come to us and confirm our value proposition because they say, well, now you add up the distinctive strengths of each platform and you have the absolute top score. And this is the goal. So
so
now be patient, give us a little bit of time to achieve that and not overpromise and deliver, but the opposite. I'm very confident we'll get there. And in the meanwhile, there's a lot of opportunities. And I'm sure we'll talk about growth in a second, so I'm going to stop there for this one.
yeah, no, I think that you've raised a great point, and I think that it's worth pointing out to anyone, you know, watching or listening to us. that when Gartner do the Magic Quadrants, the criteria change each year, and it's as frustrating for you inside the vendor as me as a former Gartner analyst when you see everyone take a single picture and talk and analyze the heck out of it without actually reading the criteria, uh, not looking at the critical capabilities, so confusing company versus tool, and without recognizing that any analyst producing the Magic Quadrant has the ability to decide what they consider the key criteria are on any given year. So the goalpost can move. So we're not looking at, so it's great to obviously be their leader year after year, and I point this out because if we take the scenario of Linux, despite the positioning of SAP Linux up there in the leaders quadrant, and all credit to Andre and the team, know them well, love them to bits, it's not a comparable tool. That leaders quadrant has got apples, pears, and oranges. And to your point about Alphabet, actually, it's quite likely that a prospect won't consider half of the tools in there, not because they're not good, but because they've got a completely different use case. And I point this out because Linux doesn't compete, in my opinion, in that traditional EA space, along with the Megas and the Bizzdesigns and the Orbuses and everyone else for the. But it does it in that portfolio management, and it does it really, really well. So it's an absolute direct competitor to Alphabet. We've seen that Alphabet didn't fare very well in the Software AG organization for a whole bunch of reasons. But what we now know is that that single use case can spin $100 million of revenue, regardless of what growth you achieve from Mega and Bizzdesign, either separately or together, with the pearl of Alphabet. Then it says, actually, we know, because Linux has proved it, there's $100 million of revenue on the table just for that use case on that particular piece, regardless of anything else. So I think, that's what is very exciting for me to see what you guys do with that. So when will we actually see that acquisition close?
Well, I think that by the time this interview will be out, the deal will be closed already.
Okay,
So
excellent.
there you go.
So unlike the Mega Biz Design one, you're actually the announcement and closures
So the
done and
mega
dusted at
biz
the same time.
design, the mega biz design merger was, I think, quite uncommon by how fast we got to working together. By the time of closing, we were already one team, which is not most common practice, but I think it played in our favor because we gained 3 months of work.
Excellent. So I mentioned that, I see that there's $100 million revenue stream, which Alphabet hasn't been tapping for a whole bunch of reasons and is now open to you. Um, but I'm kind of making an assumption that the difference in bringing Alphabet into the party versus the Mega Biz Design piece is that in Mega and Biz Design, you've already had established sales and marketing teams who are very knowledgeable about the key benefits, the use cases, the value prop, and everything around those products that can carry on doing what they're doing, even as you bring them together. But I'm going to kind of make the assumption that with the Alphabet piece, that you're not getting that because I presume all their sales and marketing was via Software AG. So my question would be, how long or when will we see the existing Mega Biz Design, however you look at them separately or together, teams trained and able to sell and support Alphabet both to new customers and indeed to the existing customer base? Because I'm making the assumption that a lot of
Uh,
business design companies customers are going to be pretty excited to add Alphabet into the mix.
no, no, good question. And you're right, it is a carve out in that sense, where it was part of a larger company, great product, and now it needs to be plugged into the Biz Design group. And the good news is that from the start of 2025, it is part of the group. From an IT perspective, from a sales perspective, from the marketing perspective, we are one team already. We're already working together to prepare it so that as soon as the closing is done, we operate on the Biz Design infrastructure. So that is all set. And actually, kudos to our post-merger integration team because this team has been doing an amazing job. And trust me, putting three companies together, it's not a walk in the park, and they've been working day and night to do it. The light seem to be on the green. So no, I think this is going well, and it's really a good omen for the future. So fully integrated in the infrastructure, and now we have sometime in 2025, so that before the end of the year, rather earlier, we will be able to converge the brands. At first, we'll have the three different websites because, of course, you cannot rush it, but we're going to converge those later in 2025 to deliver a single story, a single value proposition for the end-to-end transformation story that brings in the design, the strategy design, the portfolio management, the execution with the business process part, with the GRC part. So this is really the full transformation story that that the group now is ready to talk about.
Which brings me on very nicely to where an area I wanted to jump on next. So, I mean, obviously, um, in my sessions with Nick, we talked a lot about EA and we touched a little bit about on the EA BPM, um, because we know that most of the EA players are represented in the eBPA space. Um, but you also know that when I'm being brutally honest, then they're not actually serious players in the BPM space. So yes, because just adding BPMN modeling into an EA modeling tool doesn't make you a BPM player. It has been okay in the past for many years because you know what? That's all anyone expected was BPM modeling. So the argument was only whether it was an integrated repository or two tools. But that world has changed dramatically. Post the Signavio work and everything else that's gone on, GB Tech and a lot of those other things, and the process mining work with Sloan, we now see that a serious BPM player is modeling, they're mining. There's a lot more detailed analysis going on, and the mining may not just be process, it may be tasks. There's a much greater use of simulation. And I think that personally, by the way, as an aside, really excites me because one of the challenges with simulation, particularly with discrete event, was garbage in, garbage out. And everyone said, well, it comes in on an average distribution, and average on average on average gives you less than an average result. Now with process mining, it's like, well, actually, we're taking real live numbers. So the simulation becomes far more exciting than it's ever been before because we really can do predictions based on real data, not assumed data. So it's much richer. So one of the things that I'm still not sure of in my mind is whether the new organization is going to be a serious player in the BPM market. I understand it's got some of the pieces, and Mega has always been great at eBPA. I always have to remind everyone that when we take back into the 90s, Mega started in process and procedure. So this is not a new story to Mega.
You're right.
But how important does the organization see the BPM market today? Are we going to see more efforts going in? Are we going to see more acquisitions?
First, to answer your question, I think you're right, and I recognize your past history with the space and with Mega in particular. And yes, I still have a book that was written quite a few years ago of how to do business process modeling in BPMN, written by Mega at the time. It was a strong focus, but it still is today. Until the merger, what was the strength of the Mega Hopex platform was the combination of the business view with BPMN and business process and the IT view with APM, EA in general, combined with the risk view with GRC. So that was the value proposition, the connected value proposition for transformation, which I think it makes even more sense now that you combine it with Alphabet and Bizzdesign. So for us, it is a natural extension of that value proposition that we are executing on with the merger. And yes, by executing on that vision for end-to-end transformation, the business process piece is absolutely, I want to say, critical. It is an absolute part of the vision. We already have a lot of enterprise customers in BPA, solely focused on BPA. And then our strength. So when you talk about BPA, you want to talk about the modeling, about the designers, the contributors. You want to talk about how to communicate that information to the wider audience. That's with the portal that we do have. You talk about discovery. And actually, this is an important point you mentioned, process mining, task mining for business process modeling, which is the equivalent of discovery for APM. Today, you have so much data that a big part of the job is automated. And that's part of our value proposition, how to discover data to automatically build the EA inventory and give a leg up, providing providing templates for capability maps, connecting applications once discovered to capability maps. That automation and speed to execution has been, in that case, Mega's differentiator for the last few years, working really well, actually. And on the other side, for business process is similar, but in that case, you do it with the process mining piece, which then feeds for some processes, because it's more finance oriented usually, or at least automation oriented, feeds the business process mapping. So yeah, we don't do that ourselves as a group, but there are several tools, from Microsoft tools to other partners, that we import the data from to then feed the HopeX platform in that sense, and later the future product. So yes, we can be a real business process management player, and then that is the scope
Sorry, Luca,
covered.
I just want to inject, apologies for interrupting you, because of course, anyone that's watching us in the US, for the purpose of this, we're on the same page with business process management. We're talking about the analysis, design, and management of processes. We're not talking about process automation, the execution. You know, we know that from many of our American colleagues, BPM equals execution by another name because they
BPM,
don't want to do
BPA,
exactly.
conflicting terms for a
Yeah.
long
So, so
for
we're
a long
meaning it in
time.
that European sense and the management
Business
sense of
process
managing your
modeling
business.
and management, yes, yes, not process automation and workflow automation. That's what we mean. How we used to call it business process analysis. But all those we use in the same way in the group. Um, but then on top of the natural scope that is fully covered and used by the largest customers, then the differentiator is the connection of the business process world with the EA world and the GRC world. And both are equally interesting. When you do internal controls, for instance, internal controls is regular assessment of your test of design and operating effectiveness and risk assessment based on your real operational processes. And you are required with all those frameworks to map your processes in order to analyze the risk and then set the right controls. So this is business process analysis and risk management put together, like by essence. And this is why we've been selling a lot of both BPA and risk management. And similarly, compared to a pure player process tool, now you can connect it to your applications. You can really, when you talk about mapping processes, there's the reorganization part, but there's also a whole automation piece that is part of the purpose. And then you need to be able to map which software, which systems you're going to use to automate your processes. And that makes the whole connection with the IT world. When you can do all that in the same place, well, you save yourself a lot of time in integrations. Because if you buy just the pure player, which may not have that many pure functions, features actually on top of what we have, then you have to integrate with another tool for EA, another tool for GRC. And that's a pain in the neck, and it's way more expensive. So yeah, it's an important part of the strategy, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right because it's an area you know that I'm passionate about the connection and the value of connecting. You know, if you look at it in the simplest of forms for anyone that's thinking more, well, I'm in the process world. I don't talk to the EA people because we know that happens in a few organizations, not many organizations. Um, but if we just use the simple part of data, which also, by the way, is not often covered in the EA space, and I've got no idea where HopX is in this one regard these days. But of course, that was the other aspect that was very strong in Mega 20 years ago, was actually very strong in data modeling, which a lot of people say, well,
Mm.
that's very different. But actually, these days, it's almost impossible to do good process analysis without doing data analysis, and you can't use sensible data analysis without using process. They're two sides of the same coin.
No, you're
Um,
totally right. We're still strong in data modeling, but data modeling has gone a long way in 20 years. So we've kept that part. We've even improved it with I would say, a challenger solution for data governance. When you talk about all the Colibras, the Informaticas, those are pure players. They do a lot more than what we do. But we do include a piece of, in HOPEX, of data discovery and data glossary,
Yeah.
business glossary, data catalog. I mean, they speak to each other. And the value proposition there is that those are useful for solution architects, for developers, because when you design new integrations, new applications, even new processes, well, those processes, those applications, they exchange data. So having that data catalog available is really useful for them. And then if you want to do a lot more, then you go to your Colibras and all. So yes, that complete picture has been the Mega DNA for a long time. And now with the end-to-end transformation platform, that's exactly where we are executing even more on that proposition, really.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring that up because for anyone that looks less through an EA, traditional EA lens, but looks at it through that process lens, as well, I've got process. I don't need that architecture stuff that goes with it. And we know that from a UI point of view, it hasn't been as easy to use in the space, shall we say, as it could be. But not to underestimate how they can't live in a pure process bubble anymore. And I say anymore because you could once upon a time in process modeling, process analysis. But again, going back to the process mining, well, what are you mining? You're mining systems, right? You're not mining a process, you're mining systems processes. Those system processes exist within an application, and what you're actually mining is data. Oh, so if you can't deal with managing data and data management, then you can't effectively process mine. And if you and you can't model what you oh right, actually, you wind up going back to a point that says, oh, I need 75% of my EA repository, even if I didn't think I wanted to do EA. Actually, everything else is like a ball of string. You wind up pulling it, and you may not call it needing an EA solution, but actually, that's what you wind up with as an EA, the richness of an EA repository, whether you're using it to do enterprise architecture or whether you're using it for transformation or whether you're just using it for GRC, it doesn't matter what you're just using it for. The actual underlying knowledge base on which you base those decisions is the same as you're going to have for enterprise
It
architecture.
is, I mean, I agree. It is based on the repository, and it has been the value proposition at Mega that I can speak best for, obviously, to alleviate all that effort for architects and process modelers. You don't have to do it all by hand. In fact, today it doesn't work anymore. You're in the world of CMDBs, in the world of the service nows, and it's based on discovery, so that then you can add value and make decisions with the EA tool, because the EA tool is made for transformation. But then if you can give a leg up to those architects by discovering data for them, is it on servers? Is it on SaaS? Is it process discovery with process mining? Absolutely, this is core to both BPA and EA. I have to say, though, that although for EA, you can really do a good job of discovering your application landscape with some modifications, but really a good job. When it comes to processes, there's only those automated processes you can mine because, like you say, we mine data, workflows. So it really applies to marketing, finance, order to pay, order to cash. So I think the scope is still more limited than your EA discovery, which really can do a lot of, really accelerate the effort for our customers.
Hey, Luca, sorry, I've got to stop you there. We're running way out of time. So, just like I did with the interview with Nick, we're going to split this into a part one, part two. So, we're going to call that a wrap for part one. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you very, very shortly. When we both have a chance to have a break, and we'll see how the continuity looks, to do a part two. So, thanks for that. And we'll see everyone in part two.